CBS News. Trump says Iran strikes were last best chance to take out missiles and a nuclear threat. This is interesting because about a year ago, they bombed Iran under the excuse that they had a nuclear program, but don't worry, they obliterated it. And I have been doing some reading and looking around, and no one seems to have any strong belief, any intelligence that Iran has in fact rebuilt a nuclear weapons program within the 1 year. So I fail to understand what the supposed threat even is. Donald said that the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran represented the, quote, last best chance of addressing the threat posed by the Islamic Republic's ballistic missiles and nuclear program. He also said the administration expects the campaign to last 4 to 5 weeks, but, quote, we have the capability to go far longer than that. The capability they're mentioning there, by the way, is American lives. And that will be young American men, mostly white men, because they've been kicking everyone else out of the military. So if you care about men's rights at all, that's an issue. You are seen as disposable and an available resource, as well as things like munitions. And since our decades of all-out war in the Middle East through the 2000s, we don't actually have the same long-term resources built up. We can't be engaging in several stupid wars as Donald keeps trying to start them all over in third world and developing nations. We just can't. We're spread that thin. We would need a massive industrial push to rebuild all of that. And yes, someone in a TikTok chat says, yeah, paying attention to all this is worrying. It is. And that's why I've not been streaming as much. But I want to get back into it. But I'm trying to be really selective about what we talk about and why. Because a big strategy by Steve Bannon that was introduced and how this joke of an administration operates is to flood the zone. They do lots of chaotic stuff and try to make a mess on purpose. So it's fatiguing and people will stop keeping up. And so a way to do that is to parse a little bit. I understand not everyone has the time and energy to read the news. That's why I want to do these streams and go through it together. I think it's helpful socially and emotionally to connect with people with going through it and have a perspective and a sense of time and experience. And it's not just like a wall of facts being blasted in your face all the time. And trying to keep track of some of these threads day to day as things evolve. Because there's a lot of noise and distraction. This is a distraction from ICE abuses of power and a distraction from the Epstein files, which, by the way, have still all not been released. There have been horribly messy censorship in the files we have seen that have blacked out the names of criminals as well as victims, sometimes not blacking out the names of victims. And you have to wonder who they're protecting. There's also talk that several documents with Trump in them have been withheld, and we still don't have all of it. We were supposed to have all of it months ago. Well, a war like this requires approval from Congress. There can be an exception if it's like an emergency situation. There's an urgent threat, which practically makes sense, like in good faith. Congress is a lot of people having a vote like that. There's a lot of politicking, getting everyone together. I could see reasonable situations where if something really bad is about to happen over the next few hours, it's just not feasible. Like, I understand as an emergency technicality power, it could be okay to just go ahead and take military action. However, this is not that. I'm not saying I don't think Iran has a nuclear program. I'm saying there is no evidence that I have, as well as like several high-ranking officials, even in this administration, even Republican officials. No one has said, yes, we have evidence that Iran has a nuclear program. Within a year ago, it was reported that they destroyed the nuclear program, entirely. Like, they wiped it out. So either, were they lying then? Because they can't put that back within a year, So, yeah. So we're gonna read this and see. Hi, everybody. Yeah, in good faith, yeah. But, so there's no urgent threat, right? There's not been the clear evidence that there was a plan for Iran not only to have nuclear missiles, but they were planning a preemptive strike on America, right? That would be a situation. Say, okay, we got to do something about this. And then, frankly, what you would target is probably the nuclear missiles. What happened here was we said, hey, we're going to like negotiate because there's raising tensions and like maybe, you know, there could be war or something. So we said, hey, we're going to have negotiations. So that meant that everyone, all the high-ranking officials in Iran, just among themselves, which every team would do when there's like negotiations between parties, all got together for a meeting, right? Like if another country said to us, hey, we're thinking of going to war, go, you know, let's go talk this out amongst ourselves, come up with a team strategy, like a game plan, and then come back and talk about it. So we told them, hey, go talk about it with your people, and then we're going to come and negotiate. And then when they all met up in a hotel, then we just bombed the hotel. That is a really, that's not the other missile bombing. I'm sorry, I think we get confused. That's from Dubai, I think. Yeah. But they all met up, and then like we just took them all out, right? That's why so many high-ranking officials are all dead, including the second and third choice, like the succession line that gets everybody. That's efficient and effective as a one-off thing. However, that is a dangerous thing to do because that's a bad precedent for any diplomacy, any negotiations, because we're sending out basically a lie saying, hey, let's negotiate. Then all of them get together to start negotiations, and then we kill them. That's discouraging the possibility of negotiation. If you're smart and America says, hey, let's negotiate, you can't meet up with your team because they're going to kill you. You can't talk to people. And talking to people is how we de-escalate and plan and keep things sensible. So this causes lots of chaos and sets a precedent for chaos in the future with any nation. It's just a bad way to do this. It's just very, very, it's a bad precedent. And there's some people say all this, like this is like a messy handling of the situation. There's no clear justification for it. This is a breach of consent of you, if you're an American citizen watching this, of your votes, of your tax dollars. This breaches your consent. This is like, you know, you are not represented in this decision in the capacity you're supposed to be represented. Seems to be built very clearly on lies or a lack of sufficient information. There's no clear plan for how to resolve this, but that means not only will more taxpayer dollars, but American lives will be on the line to figure this out and patch this mess. And that's all bad. And I could say all of that without in any way defending Iran. Iran is a bad place. The Iranian government is bad. The Iranian leadership is bad. And yeah, the Congress has stopped doing its job. So sorry, I'm just going to read this for a bit because I'm getting upset. Speaking at a Medal of Honor ceremony at the White House, the president said Iran ignored the United States warnings to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. This is the language I've seen come out as a talking point from officials going on news interviews and stuff. Pursuit of nuclear weapons is weird. That's not a thing. That's not saying like there is a preeminent attack. What does the pursuit of nuclear weapons mean? Does that mean like it's just an idea they have? Because I could see in good faith any government, no matter like whether they have it, no matter what their intentions are, could say, hey, maybe we should have nuclear weapons because that would like guarantee our safety and prevent anyone from attacking us on the global world stage. Like just having the idea to have nuclear weapons is not alone a threat, let alone an urgent threat. It does not mean they have nuclear weapons. Pursuit of nuclear weapons, what does that mean? Because I thought we destroyed them all last year. So the regime's rapidly growing conventional ballistic missile program posed a very clear, colossal threat to the U.S. and forces stationed overseas. And, okay, this is the conventional ballistic missile program. That's a second thing. That's very different. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime, the president told his audience. And they are indeed sick and sinister. If you're looking for someone to defend the moral character of Iranian government officials, I apologize. This is not the place for you. But that doesn't mean they had the right to do this. Who's defending a dictator? The president said the Iranian leadership, quote, already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. end quote. The objectives for the mission, he said, quote, are clear, listing 4 of them. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis and their capacity to produce brand new ones. He already took credit for doing that. So is that a lie? Was he lying then, or is he lying now? Because, like, I've not seen any perspective that has said with any amount of reasonable confidence, like, oh yeah, they rebuilt a whole missile program within a year. Like, that just not seems feasible. They could be talking about, it seems, just normal ballistic missiles, which is like a separate thing, but it's not been rebuilt within a year. So they don't, either we lied about destroying missiles the first time, or they're lying about them having them now. Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've already knocked out 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. What does that mean? Making sure they can never obtain a nuclear weapon? Like, do they have a missile program? What is the state of this missile program? Like, all of this hinges on this fully ambiguous allusion to, I mean, in the Bush era called, like, WMDs. But it's not substantiated. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. Someone in TikTok chat, Vit, says, you're just reading articles saying that everything they're doing is bad. What do you suggest we do? So I want to challenge you with that question, right? Because what do you suggest we do? I feel like you're just accepting the premise of that question. Why do you think we should do anything? Right? Like, why, what do you think demanded action or demands action? See, what does trying to have nukes mean? Someone else in the chat says it means they're trying to have nukes and want to destroy us. What does trying to have nukes mean? Because if that's the bar, a lot of places are trying to have nukes. A lot of places do have nukes. Want to destroy us does not mean they can or they will. A lot of, like, global geopolitics depends on this, like, stalemate, where you can want to do whatever you want, but what you can actually practically do, you just can't logistically. Like, you just game it out. Move to any Middle Eastern country and see how they feel about you? Yeah, I don't like any Middle Eastern government. Fuck them all. Like, I will proudly say that, right? Like, I'm not defending any of this. I don't see how this does anything but make them worse. This is turning out new generations of Iranians who will dedicate their lives to a hatred of America, while at the same time killing the equivalent generation of Americans who would stand up and defend America on a useless, needless war. Not against the enemies we have, but dying so they cannot stop the enemies this creates. This does spike the cost of oil and gasoline. It makes that harder. Yeah, the Khomeini was a terrible guy. I'm glad he's gone. And I hope you are too. His government is terrible. I fully agree with you on that. But, like, problem solving, right? I think cancer is bad. But, like, this does not cure cancer. You know? Like, it's just bad problem solving. And the job of being a high-ranking government or political official is to solve problems. Is to not create problems, but to solve problems. This creates geopolitical instability. This creates economic instability. This does not change the regime meaningfully at all. Like, it just doesn't. You can look at history. Like, when you want to change a regime, you need authentic local movements ready to do that. There were big protests a few weeks ago, actually, in the streets among people, right? The problem is, like, just opposing your government now doesn't necessarily mean you are practically, realistically, able and willing to take over and replace it with something better. Even if you have ideas of something better, being able to execute that requires some wisdom, some resources, and some competence. You can compare this to American leftists. I think a lot of them could agree on, like, some kind of anti-capitalism. I would not trust a bunch of young American leftists to just, okay, like, there's no government, just go make a new government. That's not going to work. I mean, we saw that with In Seattle. They created like autonomous zone in the midst of like mass protests, and they just like had a few blocks, and police just let them have it for like a few days or maybe a couple weeks, and they didn't really do anything with it. Like it's just not enough. You need more. If you actually want to replace a government with something better, you need more. You need like logistics and those resources and that community networking already built up. You need a vision. You need leaders. You need a plan. And there's no plan here. So what's weird about this is wait until after all the protests, which the government cracked down on and killed lots of protesters. I support freedom of speech. Like, you know, that was bad. But like did not give any support to what would be that counter movement that could come in. The United States government does not seem to have any plan for who to put in place. So what happens now? The regime is still there. There's no better idea waiting to step in. Like you can't just cause a problem. You can't just start a fire and then pause. In an interview earlier in the day, he refused to rule out the use of ground troops, saying he wouldn't hesitate to deploy them, quote, if they were necessary. This is the problem. This is an escalation into full-blown war, like boots on the ground war. This could include boots on the ground soldiers. And this is not an abstract. This means young men, young American men, the kind of people who voted for this, assuming it meant no intervention. For everyone else, it means their tax dollars. For young men 18 to 25, this means you. Dying for, frankly, what Israel wanted and told America to do. I think that's kind of pathetic. I don't think that's necessary. I don't want young men to die needlessly for a mess of a situation that does not seem to have any clear goals or plan to get there. I don't have the yips with respect to boots on the ground, like every president says. There will be no boots on the ground. I don't say it. The president told the New York Post. I say probably don't need them, or if they were necessary. In a briefing Monday morning, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth likewise declined to rule out the use of ground troops. He said there are not currently any U.S. service members on the ground in Iran, but added, quote, "We're not going to go into the exercise of what we will or will not do." That's a problem. We're keeping this ambiguity. Ambiguity in terms of American tax dollars and American lives. Mr. Trump said the U.S. military will easily prevail over the Iranian regime. Frankly, that's probably true. There does not seem to be much of it left. He hinted that the timeline for the war may drag on longer than the initial 4 or 5 weeks he mentioned previously. In and out. 5-minute adventure. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections. But whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always and we will have right from the beginning. We projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do whatever, he said. Somebody said today, they said, oh, well, the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. If you don't think that they just get bored and change plans, I want to know, have you gotten your DOGE check in the mail yet? Have you gotten your tariff check in the mail yet? Have you gotten the full and complete release of the Epstein files yet? These were all campaign promises. Mr. Trump spoke at the White House after his interview with the Post, his first public event since the beginning of the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran over the weekend. He had released pre-recorded videos, but had not addressed the bombing campaign in person. Today, the U.S. military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime, he said at the beginning of a Medal of Honor ceremony. The grave threat posed to America has yet to be substantiated. That's a problem. Thanks. I hope you have a great day, too. Yeah, like no new wars, right? What happened to no new wars? The president was at Mar-a-Lago in Florida during the initial phase of the war, monitoring developments from his estate, and returned to the White House on Sunday evening. 4 U.S. service members have been killed in Operation Epic Fury so far. So already 4 Americans are dead because of this. 4 Americans are dead. And that is a direct consequence of the guy who campaigned and got many of your votes running on a promise that he would start no new wars. 4 Americans are dead because of a war he started for no conceivable reason that we have any justification or proof for beyond Israel told him to. A lot of people online would call that cucked, and I think I agree. 6 have passed away? That's awful. Yeah, I heard several more were injured. This article may be a couple hours old. If you have a source on that, I'd appreciate it. Hegseth said that the troops were killed by ammunition that hit a tactical operations center in Kuwait. Today we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families, the president said Monday. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat that this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is. They keep pretending there's a threat, but I've yet to see it substantiated. In a video message Sunday night, Mr. Trump said he expects there to be more American casualties, but combat operations will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen, he said. And sadly, there will likely be more before it ends. That's the way it is. That is your life he's talking about. Israeli strikes at the beginning of the conflict killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, along with dozens of other top officials. More than 1,000 targets were hit over the first 24 hours of the ensuing bombing campaign, according to General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Iran has retaliated with barrages of missile and drone attacks on Israel, Gulf nations, and U.S. facilities in the region. Mr. Trump first said Sunday that he expects the U.S. assaults to continue for 4 or 5 weeks. Hegseth was asked about that timeline and dismissed it as a gotcha-type question. That's not a gotcha-type question. That is a strictly practical, relevant question. What has he got us into? What has he got you into? Your money? If this is provoking threats to America, could there be another 9/11? Could there be another attack on the U.S. directly? I don't know. How many Americans are going to die over this? They don't seem to know or care. They fully accept this. But, I mean, the vote was clearly to not do this. President Trump has all the latitude in the world to talk about how long it may or may not take. 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, it could move up, it could move back, he said. We're going to execute at his command the objectives we have set out to achieve. The objectives they set out to achieve were mentioned earlier. So there was actually some excuse and an answer for that. But they don't seem to be true. Yeah, okay. There are 4 objectives. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities. They did that already last year. So were they lying then or are they lying now? Second, we're annihilating their navy. Okay, why? Like, what is a naval threat? What does that pose? I don't know. I'd like to see some information on that. I'd like to see that justified more. Is there a naval threat? Or is that just killing people? Like, is that efficient? Because it's another thing to think about in war. Like, it costs money. It costs time. It costs lives. If the goal is to eliminate an urgent threat, is the Navy an urgent threat? Or could you just leave it there? Is that a non-factor? Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. Never obtain a nuclear weapon is odd. Like, is that a diplomatic deal? Like a signed promise or contract or agreement? Is it stealing any resources required to construct them? It's not just destroying their missiles, which is the first goal, which is something they've already achieved last year. So that's not really a separate goal, is it? What does that mean? The ambiguity is really unnerving. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that goal in theory, but why would you trust this? Why would you trust this? The story's not adding up. I mean, and no one is really justifying this. Yeah, it's all vague. It's all ambiguous. The time frame, the human life cost of American citizens, that's bad. Um, so I think lots of this reporting is just going to be similar kind of stuff. But I want to read at least one more source, just get some perspective. I try to look for kind of balanced like news. I don't try to politicize that. Time, AP, and NPR all seem like pretty good sources to me. Probably better than CBS. I just looked at that first. Um, let's try AP. It tends to have more of a global perspective, a little more balanced and neutral. Um, NPR is also very nerdy and dry. Time Magazine sometimes gets spicy and political with like their covers and stuff. So, yeah, let's try to look for fair sources. Aha. This is useful. Hey, graphic. Exchange of missiles batters Iran and the wider region. Okay, strikes in Iran, retaliatory strikes, U.S. military bases. Hi. Yeah, it has been a minute. Trying to stream more. So, there's a lot of back and forth here. A lot of U.S. weapons on both sides. Good for the U.S. military industrial complex, I suppose. They're getting paid, but this represents a loss of lives to some needless end. Thank you for the rose, Scorpio Rising Collective. Yeah, and what about the Epstein files? Like, where are the rest of them? Going back years, Trump has always said he accused Obama of wanting to start a war in Iran to save himself or distract or cover himself, which Obama never did. But it does show this is like a specific idea that has been on his mind if he's buried in trouble. Say the public absolute rejection of ICE and fury over the false promises of releasing the Epstein files and then the Epstein file cover-up by the class of Epstein's friends. Yeah, they say they want to prevent terrorist attacks from Iran, but can we name one? That's a good question. Possibly they may exist, but like, is that an American problem? Sorry to be a little isolationist here, but when it comes to like budgeting our time and money, if you've ever been on a plane, you know, they like put on your mask before you help someone else. Is this an American problem or an Israeli problem? Why is this on us? Because, yeah, as an American, I've lived my life without any significant, clear, present threat from Iran. Like, sorry. What is America first about this? A lot of missile strikes back and forth. Wow. As the war in the Middle East spirals further, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday that the U.S. has, quote, the capability to go far longer than its projected 4 to 5 week time frame for its military operations against Iran. The comment made during a Medal of Honor ceremony comes as the U.S. and Israel have continued to pound Iran since killing its supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Saturday. Tehran and its allies have hit back against Israel, neighboring Gulf states, and targets critical to the world's production of oil and natural gas. If you want a good old-fashioned, purely selfish American citizen reason to have an opinion on this war, even if you don't care about politics or knowing anything, this is going to make gas more expensive, just filling up your car. It is, significantly. Because this is going to mess up that supply chain a little bit. It's going to affect supply and demand just a teeny bit, I would think. The intensity of the attacks and the lack of any apparent exit plan set the stage for a prolonged conflict with far-reaching consequences. Israel and the U.S. have given conflicting answers about what exactly the war's objectives are or what the end game is. Oh, here we go. This AP article is pretty good. It's like a live update. I like this a lot better. AP's always been like very nerdy and dry and like, yeah, just well done. I don't know. I like a good balanced news source. I think that's what it should be. The price of oil is already increasing. Wait, hang on. Let's just look up price of oil. Wow, that's volatile. Oh, this is just today. Okay, 5 days. Oh, oh my. Okay. Um, interesting. Glad we looked at that. Okay. Yeah, that's a problem. Um, can we see that on the TikTok feed? That's just like a double. Yikes. Um, huh. That's bad. Okay, so oil is already up 6.35% in the past 5 days, which is pretty weird. Yeah, like what's sad about all of this, right, is because Trump is guided by his own being old, being too rich to be out of touch directly. He only knows stuff like from the news. He does not directly like buy things in a way that matters. Um, and he's surrounded by some like new age isolationist populist righties, but also a lot of old school conservative establishment, like Warhawk types, like guys from the Bush era, right? Um, and he's talked a lot when he's like been battered on affordability. He's tried to bring up like oil is cheap, like gas is cheap, but frankly, in the modern age, a lot of people don't complain about the price of gas, right? If think about it, and think about it, like in the 2000s, that was a big deal. But now we have a much better developed internet infrastructure, like work from home, remote work kind of stuff, communication, tech, social media. Like people don't talk, don't need to go in person as much. Like, we can do a lot remote, like this right now. So there's like a lower demand on gas and oil, right? When people are talking about affordability and cost of living now, gas is just not the biggest concern. The bigger concern is groceries and rent. And you can fix those just supply and demand, right? You don't need some like absolutely insane violent revolution, like Stalinist type model. Just build more housing and then just supply and demand. Like affordable housing is great. But I mean, Trump has specifically come out against that. There is no effort to reduce the cost of food. In fact, cracking down on immigration and illegal immigration is going to make the cost of food go up because cheap workers means cheaper product prices. And so when they start going after farms and like meat processing plants, um, they're just emptying out jobs, which makes it rough and causes supply shortages. Unless you could get like white boy rural America workers in there, but they don't want to do that. I don't know enough about all the different Middle East leaders to comment on which is my favorite one. They're all bad. They're all bad. I'm sorry, they are. They're just bad. It's like saying like which cleaning chemical would you rather drink? Like no thanks. Um yeah, but it's so difficult. Okay, Mr. Global says the oil price isn't catastrophic yet because of the massive supply currently available, but has potential to get really bad depending on how long this goes on. True. Very true. Yeah. Um yeah, like there's a lot of oil right now. Like oil is not something we're like, "Oh man, we really need oil." So why? In the Venezuela thing, would maybe increase the supply of oil if we got it, but I feel like he started a war for oil without asking the oil companies first. Because the truth is, no one trusts the Trump regime enough to work with them to get oil out of Venezuela. It's too risky. It's too hot. They can't count on like any reliable support from this government because taco, right? Trump always chickens out. It's just not worth it. There's also not a like demand for like we need more oil. In fact, they kind of want to probably protect their exclusivity a little bit. Um, If they increase oil supply, won't that lower the price of oil for customers? But like, no one needs it. Um, so it's weird. I don't know. You're not going to magically build more houses to bring the price down. They want it high. Yeah, that's true. Like this regime, like refuses to build housing explicitly. They come out against that because they want to up the value of existing homeowners. The problem is like that creates a K-shaped economy. We're seeing like a huge split, and when the interests of different people in your society are more different, um, things get bad. Like the people at the top are out of touch. The problem is they have the resources to do things, to solve problems, and then people at the bottom have all the problems. But the people who can solve the problems don't even understand what those problems are, and that just causes a ripple effect of bigger and bigger waves of problems till everything collapses. It's just a matter of like having the same interests, being on the same page. I think it's weird and it feels kind of classist when lots of like moderate liberals usually talk about like we need to build a strong middle class because it sounds kind of exclusionary towards people below. But like statistically, if you're looking at it from a statistics and policy angle, that makes a lot of sense because that middle class is what connects them, and you want that like people can go up and down. You need to connect that high and that low. So like everyone's interests are together, and you want to funnel everyone into a middle class. You want to pull people up from poverty, and then you also want to, frankly, limit the out of touch super wealthiness people have. And like I'm fine. Like if everyone was a billionaire, that would be cool, right? Like it's you can't just say like oh billionaire is bad because like sure, but I mean ideally everyone could be a billionaire. The problem is people being a billionaire where other people can't afford food. That's like just a complete failure of resource allocation. That's having consequences. And we are on the cusp of a generational collapse. Because when one group has all the resources and the other doesn't, that creates an opposition. Like, there's so many ways, I don't know, like, a lot of working at a high level of government, it's, yeah, you can't do all these, like, sweeping magical changes, you know? It's unfortunate, but, like, a big part of this kind of job at this kind of level is keeping the peace and not messing up what works. Like, something like, I don't know, like, the mail is a very mediocre service. No one is passionate about how wonderful the mail system is. Or roads. Like, there are potholes and stuff. And there's traffic, and it sucks. Do you know how hard it is to, like, build a civilization from scratch? So much of what you need to do at a high level is, like, not rock the boat so much you destroy stuff. But that's what we just did to Iran, so, yeah. And it's just, I don't know. It's just reckless. It's reckless. And the unfortunate thing about having such a massive class divide is the cost of this isn't falling on the people making these decisions, and that's the problem. When people are accountable to their own consequences, they don't make stupid, self-destructive decisions. The problem is this is not self-destructive for them. They mess it up, you pay the price. With your life and with your economy. Which is not their economy. Photos show Israel after Iran retaliated with missiles. There's one interesting angle that I think is important to Joe and all this reporting and stuff. We've already seen people start to complain about this online and social media. There is going to be a bias, an apparent bias. It is, I mean, it consequentially is a bias towards Israel. A lot of the harm to Israel will be stated, like, you know, Israel was attacked, like, you know, this many people killed. On the other side, it'll be like, people say this happened in Iran, which sounds disqualifying, and it does put it on a lesser level of seriousness. Or like, Iran was hit, but we can't, you know, confirm in the headline by who, right? It'll just say, Iran got hit, you know, whereas this is like, Israel's attacked by Iran, and like, there's clear clarity difference there. And that creates a bias in like responsibility. It doesn't mean putting the blame more on Iran. And Israel is painted more as a victim. The cause of that, though, which is like some problems can arise without intent, right? That would be a systemic problem. And that's okay. It's not to like blame anyone. This is a systemic problem in that the lots of reporters and stuff, like Israel is more friendly to the US, and we have a lot more reporters in general from the West in Israel. So we have clear, guaranteed, definite information. Lots of stuff on the Iran side we're getting through rumors or like kind of telephone a little bit, and there's a bit of an information delay before we can confirm things. So it's an unfortunate problem trying to weigh between, like, you know, a bias of like we're not trying to paint one person more as victims or show them more, but also we just have an information diff. And if you want to report urgently, like as soon as you can, immediately on both sides with what you have, you would be lying to just state the Iran stuff as fact in the same way you could with Israel, right? Like you can't just. It creates a problem. So it's something to be aware of. Like this is a skewed depiction, but also to not immediately go full conspiracy about it. There could be some. I don't know who's like, you know, all the funding contributors to these different news organizations, right? But like I don't want to attribute to malice necessarily and immediately what there could be different contributory reasons for. So yeah, like it's just gonna in any source, if you want to maintain that professionalism, it's gonna unfortunately skew. And a way to fix that would be long term to build better relations with different Middle Eastern countries, and yeah, to like be able to put more reporters in there and like balance that information differential. Like we just have a better, more secure, more direct, shorter, more efficient pipeline of getting like even like pictures, photographs, and stuff. Right. This means like this doesn't have to mean anything more conspiratorial than like we just happen to have more first party photographers on the Israel side. And part of that is like Iran is, like not a safe place to be for different types of people. Um, yeah. Yeah. Jeez. It's just awful. It's just awful and it's avoidable and it's awful. Um, okay. State Department urges Americans to leave more than a dozen Middle Eastern countries. This is probably important. The State Department urged Monday that all U.S. citizens leave more than a dozen Middle Eastern countries due to safety risks with the ongoing escalations that have slipped the region into significant chaos. This is probably important because this information, we don't know necessarily the scope, right? Like lots of these countries are allies. We don't know where these strikes could go. It could go out of hand. I don't know. I don't know how wide this will go. Something like World War One, it's just like there's a chain of diplomatic relations that brought other parties into the war. And clearly the government does not have a clear plan and does not know how far this could go. But this actually does show like a better safe than sorry scope of all the places that could be involved or turn more anti-American because of this, and people would be in danger. They posted on X, of course, that Americans in countries including Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, and Israel should depart now using any available commercial transportation. The guidance comes as some major airlines have canceled flights to and from the region. As the war that began when U.S. and Israel attacked Iran on Saturday, it has since grown into a wider regional conflict, touching nearly every country nearby. Yeah, it's muddying the waters in an already like muddy thing. I really don't prefer to talk about the Middle East and foreign policy because it is so complicated and no one, especially Americans, don't know, right? Like, I don't know. As an American, our country is effectively a continent of what would be countries if like anywhere else in the world. It's so complicated. The Middle East has such a history, entwined with religion, entwined with like subcultures and smaller groups that then like things like colonialism. I'm blaming all white people here for that. Like, please. Because they didn't really know either in the 1900s. Like they wanted to kind of take over the territory. We just drew some lines and said these are the countries now. But those lines that we drew are different. I say we. It's not me. I don't know. It's some people in like England and France and whatever are different than the lines around the different actual local like tribal kinds of groups. which just further messes things up. Like everything is just messed up in the Middle East and has been for a very, very, very long time. And it's been like really heartbreaking to me over the past like several years now to see how lots of young people have bound Palestine and treated it like a soccer game when like it's really complicated. Um, it's just it's way more complicated. One big problem is that Palestinians are in the territory currently known as Israel, even though Israel hates them, because they're also not wanted anywhere else, and that's like a heartbreaking thing. Like something Israel Palestine is so complicated, and both groups are some of the biggest victims in history. Truly, like Jews and Palestinians have been um, genocided and exiled from so many places, and like they're yeah. So like, and that's the problem too. Like this is a war where I'm sure Palestinians might die as well. Um, and even like pulling all support from Israel, making them vulnerable. Other countries in the Middle East would attack the territory, and Palestinians would also die in that process. It's, I mean, it's so complicated. Like, it is pure hubris for anyone to assume they have answers to the Middle East. Um, but this is just adding more fuel to that fire, truly. And I don't know. It's that fuel. It takes the form of American lives, as well as Israeli lives, as well as Palestinian lives, as well as Iranian lives, as well as what is this? Iraqi lives, Jordanian lives, Lebanonian lives. Yeah, we don't know how this ends. No one knows how this ends. Um, it, all U.S. intervention in the Middle East is the definition of like just getting in over your head. Yeah, Lebanese. Sorry, I was. Yeah, duh. I'm just reading words on a screen. I apologize. Making it up as we go. So maybe to get more domestic, another story that's been circling around that I have not fully heard yet, I've only just heard bits and snippets, is there was a mass shooting in Austin. And that's already becoming a rapidly politicized clusterfuck. So I'm just going to start by saying this. Shooting is bad. This should not have happened. Oh, the Hague Convention, yeah. Yeah. Let's see. I am open to reading a Fox News article on this. I just want one for balance from something on the left. CNN is soft right. I don't know about Axios. CBS is also, I think, right. Post on X, that's not good. The New York Times, also right-leaning bias. Here we go. BBC, someone, a third party who has nothing to do with this. No. Sorry. Cool. Let's see. The Hill, maybe. NBC. I don't know. Give me a source. We'll take a look at a source. We'll find something. What feels the mirrored version of Fox News? Usually like MS Now. I don't know. Let's try NBC. So we'll do Fox News and then NBC. Fair? PBS. Ugh, my heart breaks. Texas college student identified among victims in Austin bar shooting probed as possible terror attack. Ryder Harrington and Savitha Shawn identified as the two victims of a shooting where gunmen opened fire at popular nightlife spot near University of Texas. First of all, at a general level, violence like this is not normal. It should not be normal. I don't know why the U.S. treats it as it's normal. In the same way I could talk about, like, the Middle East being an absolute clusterfuck of just this, like, desperate, completely untreated, like, state of just, you know, corruption, extreme religiosity that turns to terror and violence. Like, the U.S. is a similar clusterfuck. This is not normal. Any civilized nation does not have this problem. We know they can do it. Like somewhere like, I don't know, Norway or whatever, it's not a dystopia. They don't have problems like this. And I think it's stupid for the US as a country with, I think, more potential than any other nation on earth to just accept problems like this. I think that's just a failure. Um, it's just, I'm upset about this. I don't know. It's like I think any rational country would want to be the best country in the world, right? I don't think America is the best country in the world. I think it very easily could be. Like we have the population size, we have the resources, and weird thing about geopolitics, you can just like steal the notes. You can copy the notes of whoever else is doing better than you. You know, we're not number one in education. Okay, what's the best, smartest country in the world doing? And then let's just do that. You know, or at least learn from it. We are not the safest country in the world. Like, what's the safest country in the world? Let's just do that. So this is weird. Okay, a Texas college student and another woman have been identified as victims, gunned down by a suspected terrorist at a popular bar over the weekend. Killed by gunfire at Buford's Backyard Beer Garden in Austin. Okay, so 2 deaths, 14 injuries after Ndiaga Diang, a 53-year-old naturalized U.S. citizen born in Senegal who lived in Pflugerville, Texas, opened fire at the popular nightlife hub near the University of Texas at Austin just after 2 a.m. Sunday. He put his flash shirt on, rolled down his window, and began using a pistol, shooting out of his car windows, striking patrons of the bar that were on the patio and were in front of the bar. From there, the gunman drove westbound on 6th Street to Wood Street, parked his vehicle, and exited holding a rifle, continuing to shoot at pedestrians. He never entered the bar. The gunman was then shot and killed by police at the scene. Good. The FBI has since revealed the shooting to be a possible act of terrorism. By the way, this is a situation where, like, force is good. Like, this is where police should do something about that. Like, you know, that's reasonable right there. Obviously, it's still too early in the process to determine an exact motivation. There were indicators on the subject and in his vehicle that indicated potential nexus to terrorism. Oh, that's just a category, okay? Well, unfortunately, we do not have qualified people in the U.S. in charge of determining what is terrorism. I feel like it's treated as normal because so many Americans interpret a sense of civic accountability as a hyper-personal blame attack. Exactly. Yeah. And this is something with systemic problems, right? Whether it's something like, I don't know, healthcare, sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia. When I'm talking about a systemic problem, so many people jump to this insecurity like, oh, you're calling me bad, it's my fault. And they get really insecure about that and then lash out and right away or hide. And I get that sense of shame there. But we need to do a better job about not making it a blame thing. Like, if I want to talk about, like, hey, the U.S. is systemically racist, I shouldn't have to, but I will, like, immediately follow up, like, hey, I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm not saying it's your fault, okay? These were bad rules made up by racist people a long time ago, and they're dead now. And some people today, in some areas, carrying those out are still racist. Other people don't even know, have not even questioned why this is the rule and just followed it out, right? And I'm not saying, like, it could even be, like, no one is actively racist, but, like, we're just following rules of, like, the criminal justice system, for example, of policing, for example, that were put in by bad people for bad reasons, and they died and the reasons died with them, but it's still having a consequence that we don't intend, but they intended. And those rules are still there. And look, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but we could be the good people who just fix it. Right? Like, that's the kind of thing. Like, we need to preempt that sort of negative reaction and be like, I don't know, anything systemic, people don't understand. And I do think the left could improve by empathizing and sympathizing with the right and I don't know. I don't think a lot of mediocre people in the United States will fall into bigotries and a ignorance of systemic thinking because no one has given them any reason to have anything else. If you want to get reason to have any greater perspective than that, you either have to be a minority yourself, where you will have, it'll be so self evidently obvious to you this country is fucked. Right? Like, I mean, it's obvious to you. Like, I do not need sexism or homophobia explained to me. Something like racism, I've had to learn about. But that's just how it is, right? But when you have the perspective and you have like the right to be pissed, it's very personal to you. We assume other people have a perspective too, and they just don't. And it's really bad. The main way you can learn the perspective is to go to college. That's literally it. That's why people like Charlie Kirk were paid to propagate that you shouldn't go to college, because it gives you perspective. Even outside of any formal education, literally just getting to meet people who are not from your same small town will humble you and will expand your mind and expand your social network, and you'll be better for it. I forget where that started, but that's something that really, really bothers me because I see the left botch this all the time. Something like trans issues just gets down to like you can just clap in people's face and be like trans rights are human rights as much as you want, but like you're presuming the premise that you have not conveyed to people who need that premise. Because I don't know, like it's just we got to meet people where we're at, and that involves a very, very low bar. Yeah, so like something like this, like I don't know, we have so much shooting and violent crime, and people just assume that is the way it is, and it really isn't. And that's not blaming anyone. I'm not. It doesn't like. It's not a personal attack against people who have a gun because they like to hunt. And in fact, that's a good thing. I'm glad they have that. Right? There are lots of responsible gun owners, and like hunting is a valid, not only a valid hobby. Hunting is good. Right? In the U.S., which is a massive country with so much like natural wildlife, there's a whole science to predator-prey cycles and maintaining that. It is good sometimes to actively have and encourage hunting seasons and hunting culture to keep the environment healthy and in balance. But there is also a way to not have crazy people running around with guns. And if that means just have more police and support the police so they can go kill them also, you're just taking for granted there will be crazy people running around with guns and shooting people. And I just believe in America more than that. Like, I'm sorry. I believe we can do better than that. Like, I just have more faith. Like, I think we have more resources. I think we can be more imaginative. I think we have more talents to pull. We don't have to just take this for granted as a thing that happens. We can prevent it. We can be smart. Deadly Austin shooting that killed 3 maybe active terrorism, FBI says. Okay. They're kind of just reposting their own headlines. Okay, this is the kind of like garbage brain Fox News of it all. Just all caps linking to articles about the same topic we're already on. And that's only like design wise, you can tell they're kind of catering to a lower bar. This is right. Proud American. Click here for patriotic news and inspiring stories. A lot more virtue signaling. I don't know. When I click on an article, I want information. Yeah, if we study history, we might draw conclusions we don't like. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I think anytime we talk about systemic issues, try to educate that or advocate for that, it's very easy to just be like, I have the information and then be condescending. And I think we immediately need to follow up with 1, 2. Here's a problem, and then forgiveness. Like, this is not your fault. Or like, even if it is like, look, it's not we're not here to play blame games. We're here to fix it. And that there's so much hope and positivity there and inspiration and that like sense of American innovation that like took us to the moon. That sense I really want back. And that's why like even the whole branding here, like I don't want to leave patriotism as a just a freebie given to the right that does nothing with it. It's so uninspiring. Like I don't want to hate myself. I don't want to hate America. I don't know. Rebrand. Like, patriotism is free. You could just have it. Like, take that up. Make it mean something better. We're saddened to learn that the tragic incident in Austin that resulted in loss of life. Texas Tech University said in a statement. Okay. Yeah. It just sucks. I guess there's nothing anyone really knows about the guy. Like, that's, I don't know. I want some answers. Like, this is a deeply unsatisfying story to me. It's a bad thing that happened. It's a tragedy. Fuck this guy. I'm glad he's dead. The shooter. But, like, oh, jeez. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the victims are good people. I'm sure they were. Yeah. What do we do about it? What do we do about it? It's awful. I want to know about the. This is a very deeply personal, like, sad thing for these victims. Is it bad to say, I don't want to just know about victims all the time. I want to know about perpetrators in all of these stories. In all of these stories. I feel like we take the wrong angle in a way that does not go hard enough on the perpetrators of crime. Like, even, like, I don't know, Renee Good and Alex Pretty, like, yeah, really sad. I want to know the shooters' names. I want those front and center in all these stories. That's like accountability culture, right? I don't know why. Starting in the 90s with school shootings, we developed this culture of, oh, they do it for attention. We can't talk about them at all. No, I want to know what kinds of people these shooters are and why they did it and how they did it, and then, like, crack down on those problems. What was indoctrinating them? And what armed them? Like, we take the least productive way. And you can notice this on other things. If they think the perpetrator of a crime was in any way affiliated with an undocumented immigrant or a trans person, even if it's never substantiated, they go after them. Oh, okay. But yeah, so, like, I think it's weird that in any case they can tie it to a minority, they do absolutely try to set out a witch hunt for any perpetrator. But otherwise, we just don't. And we've had, what, 30 years since internet culture has set up a continuing pattern of mass shootings. And we have yet to see any clear cause. And I bet every time, I seriously bet it has to do with, like, mental illness and or like, just radicalization that they've been exposed to, and, like, their media diet. We see that a lot of mass shooters have ties to neo-Nazism that has never been talked about. If this is some kind of crazy, like, Middle East related thing, I don't know on any side of it, fuck them. Yeah, perpetrator stories are being stifled. Yeah, every time. Is it a terrorist thing? Like, I there's this illusion, like, I don't know, they might be, like, radicalized terrorists, but, like, okay. Where's the evidence for that? Is there any group they're affiliated with? Do something about it. It's never happened. Texas gunman wore property of Allah hoodie and Iran flag t-shirt during attack. Had photos of Iranian leaders at home, sources say. What a loser. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. What a loser. Fuck this guy. I never want to get this, like, parasocially news-brained, okay? Because this is a guy who's lived in America for years. He's a naturalized citizen. Like, Fox News was trying to say, oh, he's an immigrant. No, the more prescient point here is that he's a naturalized U.S. citizen. He's been here for many years. And then was wearing a shirt with the design associated with the Iranian flag and killed a bunch of people who have nothing to do with any of that. Like, there is a line of action and consequence there, you know? Because that was not this guy's life. How did he come to care about this in such a way that he took lives? Like, this is insanity. And I don't know, even with something new, right? We've seen, I'll get off the screen, I'm sorry. With like rise of AI, we've talked about AI psychosis. And people have immediately talked about this is something new and fresh. It's not yet politicized. That there was that window of like we should do something about this, and then models are changed. But something like this can happen. What was this media diet, and why have we taken it for granted? That's a thing that can just happen. Like we don't need much, but I don't know. I just every time there's any shooting like this, I want someone in power to look at their computers, look at their browsing history, look what like TV channels they have when you turn on the TV. There's got to be common causes. People don't do this for no reason. We're not random. Like this is downstream of effectively marketing, indoctrination, input, output. Potential nexus to terrorism. What does that mean? It's too vague. They're not going to say anything for a while. This FBI is a joke. Kash Patel was drunkenly partying with Olympics teams. And then the FBI said he was there not for personal reasons, right? Because he was using FBI resources to just get a direct private flight to the Olympics just to drunkenly party. And his eyes, he looked a little coked out too. Well, my browser is freezing, which would be a good a time as any to wrap it up. So thanks for being here. That was the news of today. This is two things, one domestic, one international. There'll be plenty more to come, seeing as the war in Iran seems to have unlimited, infinite potential, according to the alcoholic Secretary of Defense. So, maybe I'll stream tomorrow. Bye, everyone.